Minister, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us today. For the recorder, this is an interview with Dr. Bosan Tijani, Honourable Minister of Innovation, Communication and Digital Economy of Nigeria, for a special edition to be published in The Economist. Now, Minister, to start the interview, the Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy has been instrumental in steering Nigeria towards a more inclusive, connective and knowledge-based society. And under your leadership, 2023 saw particularly strategic development across the country's digital landscape. So as the newly appointed Minister, I would like to know if you can provide us with an overview of your strategic vision and goals for the ministry and just outline your main priorities for 2024.
Thanks a lot, Monica. I think you seem to have the background as to the impact of the sector on the economy. I think just to put it in context, last quarter, I believe the last quarter results showed that the sector contributed over 18% to the GDP of the Nigerian economy. So it's a quite significant sector. I think that's fully recognized locally. Within that sector is, of course, the telecommunications, what you may call the telecommunications market in the country, which is now part of the larger communication sector. And Nigeria's telecommunications space is the most vibrant and the largest on the African continent, of course, because of the size of the market, the population, but also vibrancy when it comes to innovation as well. So based on this recognition, I think something that is quite critical to this current government is the understanding of the role that communications technology can play to help raise the level of productivity in the country. Because when you look at the opportunities that we have to particularly use digital technologies to shape the development of other sectors in the country, I think the government is quite clear that we must prioritize an investment in data technologies, in communications, innovation, and the digital economy at large. So the overarching description of how we see the role of this ministry in the economy is largely based on, I'm trying to close a few things so you don't get it's largely based on looking at it as the government public sector ecosystem that drives the application of digital economy for economic prosperity, in the digital technologies for economic prosperity in Nigeria. So on that basis, what we've done is to produce a strategic blueprint after deep conversations with folks within the sector, but also looking at what the country has achieved over the years. We've produced a strategic blueprint that is focused on 5 key pillars. And these 5 key pillars are based on the hope that we can, if we execute properly on our agenda, that we can help to leapfrog development in the country using technology. And the pillars, which I'm happy for us to share the document with you, is really at the foundation. The first part of it is what we call knowledge. Knowledge for us is largely based on understanding the strengths and the weaknesses of the country and the barriers that we have to truly accelerate the application of technology. So on the knowledge pillar, what we want to do is to invest significantly in building the pool of talent, technology talent in the country, because we believe that this talent is the prerequisite for anything else that we want to do. So Nigeria at the minute is aiming to train 3 million technical talent. We've actually kicked off that project, which we're doing in 3 phases, applying a very unique methodology. We're doing the 1% first in the first 3 months, so the 1% is ongoing. Then we're going to transition to 10% to 100%. And the idea behind this is that if we train 3 million technical talent, not only do we believe that the pool of talent to accelerate the application of technology will become a lot more robust, but we also want to become a net exporter of technical talent as well. And I think you've seen countries like India that is done extremely well there. So in the strategic blueprint, you see the focus on talent, on the knowledge. But the other part of knowledge is that we also have 5 technological areas that we're prioritizing, that we want, based on the needs of our economy, technologies that we believe can quickly help us accelerate development. And some of those are things around artificial intelligence, blockchain, the use of UAV, particularly for agriculture and security purposes, and also IoT, and in some cases additive manufacturing, because we have to rely a lot on importation of parts for manufacturing and things like that. So these are technology areas that we're also investing in research. We're supporting our academic institutions to be able to help research them and bring about awareness on how we can apply them. But we're also seeking to tap into the Nigerian diaspora, because Nigeria is one of those countries with a lot of our people spread all over the world. I'm sure, Monica, you've probably met a Nigerian beyond Bewaji. I'm sure you've met a Nigerian somewhere, probably at school or somewhere of that.
Yes.
So we do believe that we have that global talent, and we want to leverage that to really help us raise the level of knowledge. Then we know that if we do a fantastic job at deepening and accelerating knowledge of the technologies that we need to apply in the country and how to apply them, infrastructure is still going to become a big challenge, because you can't really drive a digital economy without the backbone. And this is why the government is also extremely bullish about ensuring that we can push and invest significantly in infrastructure in the country. And what we're doing around infrastructure, sorry, I've jumped to the third one. The second one is actually policy. I'm sorry, the second one is policy.
No.
So our focus on policy is saying you can have the talent and you can have the know-how, but if you don't have the enabling environment to really help those talents build for the nation, then you're going to stifle innovation. And in the process of stifling innovation, your talent will probably just leave the country or work only for countries above. So we have a series of policies that we're either accelerating their implementation or coming up with new ones. And there are quite a number of them, including our national AI strategy, which we've already kicked off. And within that AI strategy is also where we're using that strategy of relying and getting support from our diaspora community. So a lot of Nigerians in diaspora that are part of the artificial intelligence space are also supporting us to reimagine our AI strategy. But we also have our digital economy policy that we're working on, our blockchain policy that has already been done that we're now implementing. So that's the second pillar. That policy must be seen as a way of enabling and opening up the market for innovation, not just as a way of regulating and stifling the market. So that's the second pillar. The third pillar was what I was jumping into earlier, which is infrastructure. So on infrastructure, our belief is that you have to build the backbone. If you have the pool of talent, you have a forward-looking policy, but you don't have the required infrastructure for digital economy, then you're still going to struggle to be able to harness the power of digital communications to drive prosperity in the nation. So currently we have a plan. There's a plan that we have to ensure the installation of 120 kilometers 95,000 kilometers, I keep mixing this up, 95,000 kilometers of fiber optic cables in the country. That's the target that we set for ourselves. But fortunately, we already have about 35,000 kilometers of cables installed, fiber optic cables installed in the country. So the government is setting a target to ensure that in the next 4 years, we can actually plug that gap and take that number to about 70 to 80% of our target of fiber optic cable. Which means when we have fiber optic cables, then we can bridge the gap, the connectivity gap in the country. We can have more unserved and underserved communities also coming into the digital economy. The quality of connectivity can also really go up as well. So we're investing aggressively into that. We're starting something that's called the Broadband Alliance, which is going to be nodes in the subnational government locations, so what we call state here. And the Broadband Alliance is going to focus on ensuring that we can articulate and invest in opportunities for using connectivity to drive economic progress in the different states that we have in our country. But also, as you may know, Nigeria is one of the few countries in Africa with its own satellite. We actually own and have a satellite, but that satellite is not optimally used. So as part of this government objective is to drive up the application of that satellite for connectivity purposes as well. We want to ensure that through the satellite, we can also beam internet to some of the rural and local areas that are currently struggling to be part of the digital economy. Under infrastructure as well, we're building and investing significantly in innovation spaces. If you look at the document, you're going to find a lot of this in there. But another key part of our infrastructure goal is to actually build what we've called the Nigerian stack. So we're looking to transform government services in Nigeria using technology. So at the minute, there's a lot of application and use of technology in government. I'm sitting in a government office. You can see I'm connected and we have all the systems. But these things are done in silos, right? They're done in silos. They're not connected. So we're looking now to build a Nigerian stack, which is a common platform for all the technologies used in government that is used to transform public services, but done in a way that we have a seamless interoperability of data across all part of government, which would then improve the way government deliver public services, but also help us to reduce the cost as well, because at the minute it's done in silos, which is costing a lot of money. And our president is quite notorious for this, because when he was the governor in Lagos State, he did exactly the same as well, which was extremely successful. So this is one of the biggest targets he's given me, which is to transform public services, using technology. And we hope when we do that, eventually in that 4 years, we can then have a single portal where you go to access all government services, which is something we're calling the OneGov platform. That's also part of our investment in infrastructure. Then moving away from infrastructure, or before I move as well, we have the postal service in Nigeria that is called NIPOST. We also understand that for the digital economy to thrive, you still need, one, to be able to reach everyone in the country. And the NIPOST in Nigeria is an organization that has received significant investment historically. So they have a lot of locations spread across the country, but those locations have not been optimized or even modernized. So as part of our agenda in this government is to reimagine the role of NIPOST in our society, invest in them, modernize them, ensure that people from different parts of the country can be able to ship goods, but also not only ship goods, use NIPOST locations as a place where they can access government services and in some cases digital services as well. So that's also something we're doing under infrastructure. And the fourth pillar is what we call the innovation, entrepreneurship, and capital. And what we want to do with this is that we do understand that the startup ecosystem in Nigeria is vibrant, and we do understand the fact that if we invest significantly in talent, we come up with modern policies, but also, Mr. Isaac, you don't need to be on this call. We come up with modern policies, we invest deeply in infrastructure. Mr. Isaac, you don't need to be on the call. We invest in infrastructure. Those things can only serve the nation if we allow entrepreneurs to build on top of them, because the way you capture value and gain from investment in such ecosystem is when you allow entrepreneurs to build. Those entrepreneurs are the ones who will build the applications and the services that can leverage the investment in infrastructure, that can provide job opportunities for talent. So our goal is to actually ensure that not only do we put the right pro-business support in place and policies in place for entrepreneurs, but we also increase the pool of patient capital that is available to technology businesses in Nigeria. A lot of countries in Africa, and Africa in generally, saw the decline in the available capital for technology startups in 2023. But if we use the 2022 number, I think Africa raised about 5 billion and Nigeria alone did about 1 billion out of that 5 billion.
Wow.
So it's quite significant. But we think we can raise that to about 5 billion. So the government is already launching a program that is called the IDICE, which is putting about $665 million on the table to both invest in local early stage businesses, but also support both the technology startup and the creative economy ecosystem in the country. But we want to do more. We want to see by mid-term of this government, we want to be able to increase funding to tech startup in the country to about 5 billion a year. So we have a dedicated hand that is working on this. The other thing we've seen also is that most African startups, and same for Nigeria, do not domicile in the country. They're typically in Delaware or places like that. And we understand that it's one thing to create an enabling environment to help attract investment to businesses. It's another thing to ensure that the future of those businesses are also tied to our own prosperity as a nation. So we also want to increase the rate of technology startups that domicile in Nigeria, and that's going to require that we put in place policies that are attractive to their investors, but also to the companies as well. So we want to increase that to about 25%. At the minute, it's just about 1 or 2% of the companies that domicile locally. So we want to change that as well. But beyond that, we also want to give startups the opportunity to participate more in delivering services to government, because we think startups are more innovative, and their innovation can also help government deliver some of our goals as well. And lastly, we're almost there, Monica, is trade. If we accelerate and enhance Nigeria's position as a technology destination, we shouldn't just build for ourselves. We see the opportunity to also then sell abroad, to export some of our solutions. And this is already happening. You already see companies like Flutterwave, which is a Nigerian fintech company that is across multiple nations in Africa. I think they also just expanded into India as well. They have the ambition to be everywhere. Same for Paystack, which is across the continent, and we have quite a number. But because most of these companies are also not domiciled locally, this does not count as part of trade that we do. It counts for the US because these are American registered companies. So we also want to be intentional as to how government can support truly locally domiciled companies to export under the single market agreement, the AFCFTA agreement for Africa. Nigeria would like to play a more active role there, where our technology companies can export to other African countries, but also we can also give opportunity to other African countries to encourage their technology businesses to expand into Africa as well.
Wow. Well, that was a very good snapshot. You've touched on almost all of the topics that I wanted to discuss with you today. So I'm just going to ask you the questions, and then we can just maybe hone it onto the topics that we've already just touched on. So we know now Nigeria has emerged as the leading ICT market in Africa, surpassing South Africa now, and it has 82% of the continent's telecoms or telecom subscribers and 29% of internet usage. So against this backdrop, what would you highlight as Nigeria's unique strengths as an emerging digital hub? And what would you say are the key factors fueling the remarkable growth the country's tech and digital landscape is seeing?
I think it's the demography first to start with. If it's something you can, the demography, because Nigeria is a country where I think it's about 60% or so of our population are said to be under the age of 25.
Young population, yes.
Very young population. I need to check the actual description of that. It's a very young population, and by default, these are digital natives. Right? By default, these are digital natives. If you don't live in Nigeria and you look at it as a third world country, you may be thinking, yeah, they're young, but they don't have access to the internet. But most young Nigerians, even those who are from low-income families, still find ways, to access basic used mobile phones and find ways to access the internet, because the telecommunication companies also make it possible for them, even though quality is still an issue that we're working on. So we think that demography is a fantastic opportunity. When I said we're training 3 million people, we are training 3 million people. The program is called 3MTT.
3MTT, yes. That's also the question that I was going to ask you.
It's actually quite exciting. When we launched the program, under 4 weeks, I think we had about 1.5 million people sign up. Under 4 weeks, just sign up. So we're doing the first stage of the prototype, because we're very careful. We don't want to just throw money at this initiative. We really want to learn how we can truly help these young people learn. So we started with our 1%, which is the prototype stage. And that's going to end in March, early March, but we're going to start the selection of the second batch in February. So we can already see that the power, the pull is there to drive it. And with that pull, Nigeria is also a very unique country. it may not be that difficult, easy to quantify, but the average Nigerian young person, the energy is quite forward-looking. They really want to explore. These are people who really want to apply their skills, apply themselves. They are ambitious, and everyone knows that about Nigeria, even though we can't quantify that on paper, but that's something that works for us as well. Because I was extremely fortunate to be part of the start of this current technology ecosystem. I founded the first technology hub before joining government in Nigeria. And I've witnessed the growth. Just about 12 years ago, Nigeria wasn't even rated in Africa as a technology destination. But today, it's either competing, cities like Lagos is competing with cities like Cape Town, which is insane when you look at the historical advantage that Cape Town has compared to a place like Lagos. So I think what we're going to keep saying as well is because of that energy, because of the desire, and also because of the gaps in the market. I think the gaps in the market is oftentimes what we talk about as challenges. We don't articulate them as opportunities. The need to improve learning outcomes, the need to deliver, better and accessible, affordable, quality healthcare, the need to fix accommodation, transportation. You cannot sustainably develop all of these solutions for all of these challenges in the world we live in today without technology. You can't anywhere in the world, which means the consumption of technology in Nigeria is going to continue to grow. And as it continues to grow, the sector in itself as well will continue to grow. And we already have a government in place. Our president, for instance, has made it clear over the next couple of years, we have to cultivate 500,000 hectares of land, for agriculture in the country. Again, you can't do that without effectively applying technology. And that's why I'm bullish about the fact that with this government, you should see in the next 4 years a significant growth in the Nigerian tech startup ecosystem. Significant. If we accomplish our goals, I think there's absolutely no way even countries like Kenya or South Africa can still compete, because South Africa is a truly export-focused tech ecosystem. But I think the level of consumption and opportunities in Nigeria will drive up the growth of the ecosystem.
Wow, yes. So I just want to, in driving Nigeria's digital economy, what challenge would you say lie ahead for the ministry or for the country, and what plans does the ministry have to overcome these on this journey?
I think two biggest one, and the first one is that a nation cannot truly deploy and accelerate tech enough if you don't start from your public sector. So government services in itself, we must digitalize them, because if citizens cannot and businesses cannot easily engage with government services and government support, then there will be unnecessary struggle. Right. If it's difficult for me to get my ID as a citizen, if that would have implication for the way businesses can even do things like credit, because they're going to need to be able to identify everyone in the country easily, and when they move for their services to be available to them. If businesses can't file or register easily, those things may have implications on the growth. So I think part of our challenge will be how quickly can we transform government services with technology. I think there's a relationship between how quickly you can do that and the growth of your tech ecosystem. So I think that's going to be one challenge that we need to drive quickly. The other one, I think, is going to be more around patient capital. Because if you continuously rely on foreign inflow of capital to back new ideas, then the pool of new ideas that you're able to see in your nation will be limited, because you're competing for value, which investors, even though investors are there all over the world, but our ability to improve the pool of capital for those who are building at the very early stages, to make it easy for people to try and fail, is going to also determine how quickly we can accelerate and strengthen that ecosystem. And government do have a role to play there. The private sector as well must play certain roles there. So I think those two things will unlock quite a lot. Of course, but the biggest one is also infrastructure. But I'm assuming that with our target, we will do well with infrastructure. Nigeria has done okay so far. I think we have about 7 submarine cables for internet already in Lagos. There's another 2 that Meta is bringing to the country, which we believe is going to. So the capacity is there. the last mile investment into fiber optic network is where we now need to do a lot. And that's one thing I'm extremely bullish and committed to getting done.
Okay. Well, you've mentioned now the 3MTT initiative, which I think is wonderful. I just want to know if you could maybe elaborate on that program, how the government is enhancing digital skills development through other programs, perhaps, and just to give us more detail around skills development in the digital landscape of Nigeria.
Thank you so much. So we're very sure that this is not going to be one of the biggest programs from this government. The reason being, to what we've discussed before, because of the pool of young people in the country and the global appetite and demand for technology talent. I think you have fantastic opportunity. You have fantastic opportunity. In the West, for instance, you see that most countries' population are dropping because these are typically countries with aging population. But at the same time, it's dropping as well. So clearly, the workforce for technology is not going to be as pronounced as you have in countries like Nigeria. Well, of course, that doesn't mean those countries will not be competitive, because those countries have demonstrated that they're going to stay at the cutting edge part of knowledge generation for technology. But even when you stay there, you're still going to need the workforce to drive the program. So this is the gap we've seen. If you look at the LinkedIn, there's a LinkedIn report that is out there that has shown the gap in technology workforce. And also did a projection of what that gap will continue to look like. I think it's a good data set to look. And I think countries like Nigeria, we have a unique opportunity to help fill the gap, because these days you don't necessarily have to leave your location to even work for most technology companies. So it's an advantage for us on one hand to create job opportunities for our people, but on the other hand, it's an advantage for us to build a local workforce as well. So what we're doing is we've launched this program, which is using a blended approach. I think it's going to become a case study globally, because I don't know if any government has done something similar at scale, right? So it's a blended learning where we've partnered with a couple of companies, and the participants have the opportunity to learn online. But because of our experience, we understand that in technology, learning online is not sufficient. You also want the opportunity to be able to go to a physical location and collaborate with other people that are either learning or more experienced than you, to actually put your knowledge to practice. So we also then engage across all the states in Nigeria, learning centers where these folks can go 1 or 2 times a week. And you can go there, mingle with people. The institutions running these centers will also then give them challenges as to things to build. There will be things around hackathon design sessions where they design solutions and build together. And we started seeing cases of people doing this within the program. Even though we just launched the first one in December, we found the first person who started one of the courses, a product development course, actually got an internship. It started on Monday, so that's the number one first person to get a job. That is incredible.
Wonderful, yes, that's good.
So we're also tracking it. We don't just want them to learn, we also want them to actually move from there into jobs. So we have a number of technology companies that we're already enlisting that will take some of the interns from the programs. We're working with gig platforms, even globally, where some of them can also be hired to work remotely from Nigeria. But it's a program that we've set out for 4 years. And as I mentioned earlier, we're doing it meticulously. We're not approaching it with just a lot of budget. So we've created and designed an implementation strategy that sees us start with what we call the 1%. And 1% of 3 million in this case is 30,000. And we've shortlisted and enlisted these 30,000 folks to learn across the 10 different streams that we have, which cut across software development, stuff around data science, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, to UI, UX, to things around quality assurance. It's a long range that we've listed these folks to be learning on. Then once we learn from that 1%, we can then see how do we scale it from 1% to 10%, which is going to be 300,000. So everything that we've learned from the 1% will guide us in improving the program in itself, because we understand that we'll be using, in some cases, taxpayers' money, but also contributions from corporate to deliver on this program. So we just don't want to throw money at it. And by the time we do the 10%, which we're calling our prototype, our pilot phase, we would have improved upon what we've learned from the 30% and take that into the 300,000. And, which is a large number. 300,000 is big. And if we're able to deliver on the 300,000 successfully, then we can scale to 3 million. So I'm inviting everybody globally to keep an eye on this program.
Yes, I was about to say.
Possibly even help us track the performance as well.
Yes, no, that's very exciting. And I will be keeping my eyes on that development of
Good,
that.
Monica. Thank you.
Now, Minister, you mentioned the startups and the importance of the startup ecosystem in Nigeria. And we also mentioned that, like, the several multi-million-dollar startups that the country has already fostered, like Flutterwave, InterSwitch, most recently Omnibiz. So I would like to know, can you elaborate on how the ministry's policies and initiatives are fostering a conducive environment for digital businesses and startups? And how do you expect this to impact Nigeria's overall economic landscape?
No, absolutely. So one of the things that the previous administration did, which we're taking forward, in conjunction with the startup community, is to work on what we call the Startup Act, which is being passed into law. And the Startup Act has a range of activities and policies in place to support the startup ecosystem. So support is on one hand to continue to develop, but also give access to resources. But on the other hand, is giving access to technology startups to be also be able to participate in business opportunity, especially in government as well. Because typically in government, smaller businesses struggle to participate because of stringent requirements that they have to meet for you to serve government. But we do know that government in most countries typically is always the largest consumer, if you think about it, the largest customer rather. And because that's the case, if you deny your technology businesses to participate, then you're going to limit them. But beyond that as well, we also know that government in a country like Nigeria is desperately in need of applying technology really smartly. And the startup community is a community that can help us imagine how we can use technology to shape education or use technology to reimagine healthcare, for instance. So we want a situation where we can open up, allow our policies to invite startups in to participate on one hand, and that's what that Startup Act and the office that is responsible for it is driving. We also have a council that is actually made up of members of the startup ecosystem, not government, and that council is responsible for the implementation of the Startup Act alongside the government, and that council is also meant to inform the government on immediate needs of the startup community as well. And one of those immediate needs in our mind is capital, the need for us to make more capital, patient capital available. I mentioned this earlier, which is why the government is also, as part of our target, if you look at the strategic blueprint, we are looking to set up more funds that local companies can have access to, and it can help them drive the development of their businesses early days. Also, and I think lastly is about what I mentioned earlier, which is trade. Supporting Nigerian startups to be able to also participate in trade. We want to protect them, we want to promote them, and ensure that they can also participate in trade opportunities where their solutions are needed globally.
Wonderful. Now, we also briefly touched on AI and disruptive technology. So I'd just like to know, like, disruptive technology in Nigeria are rapidly evolving, and the country is certainly laying the groundwork for success in this area. So in light of your recent announcement about the National AI Research Scheme, I would like to know, how do you envision AI and other disruptive technology like IoT?
Monica, I think your sound started going low, so I didn't quite catch the question. Yeah.
I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better. It's closer. Thank you.
In light of your recent announcements about the National AI Research Grant Scheme, how do you envision AI and other disruptive technologies like IoT and blockchain overcoming obstacles and revolutionizing industries in Nigeria? And which emerging areas do you believe hold the most promise for the country?
No, fantastic. I think AI is a good place to start because it helps to understand, when most people talk about these things, they tend to think developing countries are too far from making gains from them. But when you truly understand the core of these technologies, you probably understand that we need it more than anywhere else in the world. Right? Because when you talk about artificial intelligence, it's really giving the opportunity for businesses, but also society at large, to leverage knowledge in an unprecedented way. Because what's AI? It's about thinking computers to think like human, but in the process of that, these machines are able to pull data sets that you and I can't pull together, analyze and make sense out of. And they give that to businesses, to governments, to individuals at scale, which means you can now have access to knowledge that you can use to drive competitiveness at a very cheap rate. Right? That's what AI does. And I think if you think of what we need to be building in education, how we need to reimagine education, how we need to support teachers to be able to teach well with the right tools, AI can do that, because everything that the teachers want to have access to, generative AI can, in a way, pull it together and give it to the teacher as Hague, and the teachers can now apply their own intelligence to deliver it to students. AI can also help learners as well, where they're struggling with a particular subject. It can come to them, on the go. So you can see the opportunity there, and it's the same for healthcare. It's the same when you think of agriculture. The sort of things that we can do with artificial intelligence. So for countries like Nigeria, where we have a desperate need to diversify our economy, artificial intelligence offers that opportunity to be able to leverage insight that is already there, out there in the world, but in a sort of collective manner, to quickly accelerate that diversification. But the challenge, of course, with these technologies is that because we don't tend to participate in their development early enough, sometimes they're far too developed before we come on board, which means in the case of AI, the biggest challenge with AI is actually inclusion. Because artificial intelligence is what it is because you feed it data, right? And if the data that is informing AI models are not inclusive data sets, then those data sets will not take into consideration the reality of African countries, of countries like Nigeria. So one of the things that we're accelerating in Nigeria is actually participating in the development in AI from a data inclusion point of view. Nigeria would like to be a superpower when it comes to how we reimagine data inclusion, because we're the ones with a lot of data sets that are dark data. So we do have the opportunity there to start to ask difficult questions, but to also find interesting technologies that can help us convert our dark data into connected data. And when we do that, then our voices are included. And when I mean our voices, our reality, what we know, what we've experienced, are included in the data set that is training AI model, which is a fantastic opportunity for the world, because then the AI becomes a lot more robust, but at the same time, it offers opportunity to do things differently, but also job creation as well, because if we're going to do that, then you need a lot of people that are doing annotation and labeling. So there's no reason why Nigeria cannot become the top destination in the world for annotation and labeling. Again, with our youthful population that are looking for gainful employment, by becoming the world destination for annotation and labeling, we can create opportunities for them, but also then accelerate our participation in the AI movement. So your question on which one do I think is critical, I think quite a number of them. In our strategic blueprint, we've identified that artificial intelligence is extremely going to be important for us. UAV, technologies such as drones and the like, would also be extremely important, both for security and agriculture. We have an extensive, collection of land that we can actually put to good use, and technologies can help us do that. So technologies like UAV can deliver good opportunity there. We've also identified things around blockchain, IoT, where we're connecting more devices, and by connecting them, we can collect more intelligence from them and use the intelligence to also serve our people and society at large better.